Exactly, and we talked a lot about that topic yesterday as well. We had it on a panel where we looked at, okay, what's the biggest hurdles when it comes to scaling artificial intelligence applications. And besides data and processes, it's the talent. So people are missing, people are missing the skills that are relevant to make AI work on a larger scale in organizations. That is why we now have a talk on a data scientist, the sexiest job of the century 10 years later. Whether it is still sexy will now be answered by Dr. Alexander Friedenberger. He has been working as educational scientist at StackFuel since 2019. He is a former research associate at FAU Erlangen-Nuremberg. He holds a PhD in theoretical and mathematical physics. I hope we don't all need that much knowledge to succeed when scaling AI. Exactly. Over to you.
Thank you. Let me first thank you and all the organizers of this event working behind the scenes to create such a nice event. It's really a pleasure to be here and talk to you. We are now in the year 2022, and some of you might remember that in 2012, data science first entered the public consciousness. People talk about data science as the sexiest or most in-demand job of our century. And my idea is now that many of us have to make predictions about the future in our job, and that's pretty hard because we don't get training data about the future, and we only get one run. We can't rewind time and let it run again. We have one run, and so we are very sensitive to not very common events. But what we can do is we can go back in the past, look at past predictions, and see how they turned out. And one of the predictions I've already mentioned is that 10 years ago, several people were very convinced that data science will be very important in our century. And now let's go back a little bit and see what people have thought in the past and how the situation is today and how people are reacting to it. That might indicate how the future might look like. So before we start, let's feel old together and think about what happened 10 years ago. Some of you are interested maybe in football, so they might remember that Bayern Munich lost the Champions League final, the final at home. It was also the last time that Bayern Munich didn't win the domestic championship. But also for the people that are not interested in sports, Gangnam Style became the most liked video on YouTube, for example. And what is also very important, Barack Obama won his second term as the US president. And what's very interesting about that is that he was the first president that used a dedicated data science strategy in his election campaign. And he was also the first US president to create the role of the chief data scientist of the United States. And this is DJ Patel that you see as one of the authors of this paper that I've shown you here. In 2012, the two authors and several others, managers at Google, proclaimed that statistician, very hard word to pronounce, and data scientists will be the most important job role of our century. And yeah, we can go back what kind of ideas they had at the time. So one point is that at this time, data scientists were still some kind of exotic creatures in companies. So some tech companies hired very bright minds from tech universities and said, basically, let's see what you can do with our data. The job role was not very well established, but already VCs working close to the Silicon Valley were worried that they might not secure enough talents for the companies that they were supporting. And this was more like a Wild West scenario where companies were using sciencey magic to create value for their companies. For example, one example they give is that people working with DNA, so bioinformaticians, for example, were using techniques from DNA sequencing to make fraud detection. So let's look a little bit closer at this so-called first generation of data scientists. They had a somewhat dizzy job description. No one really knew what they were doing. Most had some idea that they're working with messy and unstructured data, but what they're doing with this was still somewhat undefined, because you had sometimes experimental physicists, geologists, like a broad range of science people transferring what they did in a science context to a business context. So it was not very clear how the data scientist fits into the company and how you could employ them to create the most value for your company. And how could you come up with whether your data scientist is doing something useful or is a good data scientist? There were no clear measures or how to measure like return on investment. And there were no established graduate programs for data science at this time. So this created a dilemma, or several dilemmas, for business leaders. So first of all, this talent is hard to come by. There's a limited amount of elite science graduates that have the necessary skills to do that. And they are hard to maintain. Because they are so much in demand, they demand a high salary, but also beyond salary, they demand to be employed in a certain way, have influence on how they're working and what they're working on. And also from a balancing point of view, they might create the biggest impact if they work close together with management, but this also means that they have less time to develop their skills and work with their peers. So companies that are not Silicon Valley companies or big tech companies were faced with the situation, like, do I enter now and have this very chaotic situation? I don't know what to look for, what is a good data scientist, how to use them, or do I wait for the second generation when there are dedicated graduate programs and everything is more settled? On the one hand, this leaves you with less uncertainty, but it might mean that you fall behind to your competitors that are already using data science to their advantage, and maybe it might not be possible to bridge the gap when you enter the field. So this brings us to the present, the current state of affairs, so to say. And the landscape has become a little bit more diverse. Data scientists are not the only important roles working with data. So we still have the data scientists and the data analysts that are a little bit older now, but new roles have emerged. For example, the data engineer, the machine learning engineer, AI specialists, and analytics and NI translators. So the supply has increased, the field has diversified, but still data scientist is one of the most in-demand job roles today. So now we have the second generation of data scientists available that I've talked about. They are dedicated university programs. So the idea is consolidating what data scientists need to know. We have these graduates available in the job market, and companies have reacted to this availability and have now created structures within their company. So again, it's still one of the great fastest growing jobs available, and in this sense, even if the supply has increased, the demand has also increased, and we could say data science is still as sexy as it was, or maybe even sexier. So how are companies reacting? That even with the second generation of data scientists, we still have a lot of job vacancies. So there could be lots of, we have here this kind of a pyramidal approach. At the base, you will create more data literacy in your company so that even non-experts know more about data and AI than they used to know. There's another strategy that's called self-service business intelligence, where even people in the departments that are not data science or data analytics experts are able to create their own reports, dashboards, and answer important business questions with data. And on top, there's what's called a citizen data scientist. These are people working in the departments, don't necessarily have a strong data science background, but using, for example, automated tools that become more and more available and getting additional training, they can work on at least simple data science use cases on their own. So the idea behind this is that we distribute the burden of data science over more shoulders. So let's look a little bit more in detail. So the first one is that we use data literacy and create AI and analytics translators. What they do is they work as an in-between between the dedicated data science experts and your departments. For example, marketing, sales, and what this does is it takes away of the burden from data science, because in the past, people, for example, working in marketing don't have a lot of, sorry for picking out marketing, it's just an example, no offense. But for example, they don't have a lot of knowledge about data and data science, and they would create inquiries that were, to some extent, nonsensical, or they were not workable, or whatever. They were, to some extent, low quality, and this would create some kind of overhead where data science had to deal with these inquiries, which never led to anything useful. If you have these analytics translators, they can go in between and maybe act as a check. Okay, this cannot be done, or this will not create a positive impact, and thus take away some of the responsibilities of the data science team. Yeah, so the data science team can focus on more high impact and more quality inquiries, and thus you can create more with less people, or with the same number of people. The second part is the safe service business intelligence. Here you create, also again with the help of tools, the ability to work on analytics use cases within the dedicated departments and not the data science department. So, for example, if you are working in sales and you need to forecast your sales for the next quarter, you could use these tools and the data available in your company to help you with your forecasting without help of the data science or data analytics department. And again, this will take away some of the burden on the data science departments and thus make them more impactful or efficient. And finally, I've already mentioned are the citizen data scientists. These are again working in the departments like the sales departments or the marketing departments. And in many cases, what we observe is that at least for small cases, for small use cases, the domain knowledge is much more important than the technical expertise. And we can profit from automated tools like Data Robot or AutoML, and then the non-tech departments can create their own data science use cases, maybe under the supervision of your data science team. And again, the result is that we create more impact without increasing the number of dedicated data scientists. So how can we help you implementing these strategies? We have a catalog of data and AI trainings that can help upskill your existing workforce and make them more data literate. We have a training platform where we provide a hands-on experience if you are looking to create, for example, citizen data scientists or BI analysts, where they get hand-on experience and training in this field. And we can then provide a certification which makes sure that all the people going through the training indeed have the necessary qualifications and skill to work in this area. Again, yeah. So we have, again, we divide our courses over upskilling and reskilling. Upskilling is more devoted to data literacy, so this could help you help for the broad base of your workforce. In AI and data literacy, also devoted to management and how to communicate data insights. And on the reskilling side, we create trainings that could allow the participants to work, for example, as a self-service BI analyst or citizen data scientist, but we also have courses on software development, yeah, and other areas. So what makes us special is that we have a high recommendation rate. For example, for an for an online learning platform, we have a completion rate of nearly 91. If you ask other online course providers what their completion rate is, it's usually in the teens to 20s. So it's a very high completion rate. We work together with important players in the German industry, for example, BMW or the Deutsche Bahn. And with this, I'm coming to the conclusion. So what should you take away? One way to address the still existing skill gap in data science is to democratize the data skills by upskilling more broadly in your workforce. You could establish a company-wide data literacy program to create a data-driven mindset, install AI and analytics translators, and set up self-service BI and citizen data sciences aside your data science experts. And with this, I'd like to thank you for your attention. And if you want to talk to us, we have a booth downstairs and looking forward to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexander. We still have some time for questions. Now, we also have a mic. Maybe from my side, a first thing, because we had the topic yesterday. Thing is, it's not only enough that we now maybe in schools start with data literacy, but we also have to, of course, reskill the existing workforce. How much time, and therefore money, would you say, does it need for companies to get their data literacy on point? How much does one who doesn't have any maybe data background, would you say, okay, half a year and then you're ready to go, at least with some basic data knowledge, data scientists, citizen scientist, you could say?
That's pretty much depends on where you start and where you want to end up. If you are looking to only create a general awareness so that maybe the members of your department have a general idea of what's possible and what's not possible, this can be done pretty easily. Like we have some, for example, data awareness and AI awareness courses that only take about 12 hours to complete. So this could be the first step to get a general idea. But if you want to do more, then it's depending again, where are you starting and where do you want to end. If you have absolutely no idea about data and you want to end up maybe as a citizen data scientist, this would be a longer path, maybe half a year, for example. Then you would take our data analytics course and then our data science course that could translate to almost half a year in part-time. So you would still be working most of the time, but maybe one day of the week you would devote to the training, then it's 6 months.
So it's investment, of course, for companies, but I think what my idea would be at least that even if you have only that awareness of what AI is capable of doing and what it's not capable of doing, it's really important that people in the departments can see what possible solutions there are for solving business problems with the help of data, and then also being more open maybe to a data-driven transformation within their company. Just looking around right now, we have no further questions. Maybe one last thing from my side concerning the curriculum, you could say, itself, how much do you maybe, is it adapted somehow to the specific, probably not to the sector, but I guess you said marketing, for example, but industry maybe has quite a different focus you'd need in such a reskilling training. How do you get the people out of the context, or where do you meet them within their sector or their area?
Let me just say one thing to the thing you mentioned before.
Sure.
If we talk to data science departments, and if I also talk to my friends that are working in similar role, one of the most frustrating things for them is that they get inquiries which makes no sense. And then they have to have long discussions why it's not working, and this is really taking away some of the time. So even if you have just basic data literacy skills, this would improve the situation dramatically in my point of view. And the second part, you were talking about how much tailored it is to different departments or industries. I believe that data science is pretty much what we call an unkind learning environment. So having specific knowledge about your area is only of limited value, and sometimes it's more important to have a broader view what people in other industries and other departments are doing, because otherwise you might develop a tunnel vision. You only will do what others have done before in your field, and I think it's really useful to have a broader view of what's possible, and that's why we work with a wide range of use cases from departments and industries to create more like a broader view on the topic.
Great. So helping companies and their employees get out of the tunnel vision and instead get a broader view and therefore solve business problems data-driven. Thank you so much, Alexander.
It was my pleasure.